filled. Okay, I'm going to just go one paragraph back and then start from the new area today. At the second Conway Hall engagement, when Prabhupada stood during the kirtan and began to dance, the devotees on stage joined him, dancing in a circle. Ishana played his trumpet, and even Saraswati, her diaper showed beneath her short dress, jumped up and down in ecstasy. Each week would bring another Conway Hall meeting, and Prabhupada's dancing became a regular feature. One night at Conway Hall, an Englishman stood and asked, "Why is it that you don't try to help the people of your own country? Why did you come so far? Why don't you simply approach the big politicians? There are big politicians to try to help there." Prabhupada responded, "You are a great politician. Therefore, I'm approaching you. Is that all right?" Another man asked, "If this is the absolute truth, how come there are so many people in London, but not so many people are in attendance here?" Prabhupada responded, "When you are selling diamonds, you don't expect many customers. But if you're giving cut glass, the fools will come." We have a very precious thing, this Krishna consciousness movement. Don't expect all the foolish people will take to it. Some sincere souls have come. You please also take it. Prabhupada felt encouraged by the response of the English. Regularly, the audiences would join in the chanting and dancing. In London, things are going on nicely, and last evening we had a meeting in Conway Hall, and several hundred persons were joining us in chanting and dancing. After the meeting, one reporter from the biggest London newspaper came behind the stage to get further information about our movement for publication in his paper. So I'm very encouraged to see the nice reception that the people in the news medias are giving to our activities in London. The narration continues. Late in October, Prabhupada spoke at the English Speakers Union to a predominantly Indian audience. He began his talk. Although we are a small gathering today, this is a very important meeting. India has got a message. You all are respectable Indians present here in an important city of the world, London, and have come here with an important mission. It is not the same mission as Indians generally have, who come here and to other foreign countries to beg something. I'm here to give something, so please try to cooperate with me. On October 30th, Prabhupada lectured at Oxford Town Hall. His talk was basic, although embellished with more Sanskrit quotes than usual. His disciples had not expected much of a response from the Oxford students, yet the hall was filled. And when Prabhupada's student gestured for everyone to raise their hands and dance, practically the entire audience responded. While Mukunda played the huge pipe organ and hundreds joined the chanting, Prabhupada held his arms high and began powerfully jumping up and down. Here's what he narrates. Yesterday, we had a very successful meeting in Oxford at the town hall. About 350 boys, girls, and old men, ladies, and gentlemen participated, and we made them all dance and chant with us, everyone. After the meeting, many boys and gentlemen came to congratulate me. Narration continues. Prabhupada received an invitation to appear on Britain's most popular TV talk show, Late Night Lineup. The interviewer, accustomed to snappy repartee, tried to engage Prabhupada in his style of conversing, avoiding long philosophical answers. He said, "Swamiji, do you have a concept of hell in your religion?" "Yes," Prabhupada responded, "London is hell." The host appeared stunned, as if beaten at his own game from the start. Prabhupada continued, Is it always damp, cloudy, and raining? In India, the sun is always shining. The interviewer was still at a loss for words, and Prabhupada, perhaps sensing the man's embarrassment, added, "Of course, it is a very great credit to the English people to have established such a civilization in such a climate." There were other questions, and Prabhupada talked for an hour, explained the Krishna consciousness movement and philosophy. The next day, a London newspaper announced, "Swami calls London hell." The Hare Krishna mantra record was still high on the charts in England and throughout the continent, and this fame led a Dutch television company to invite Prabhupada's disciples to Amsterdam, all expenses paid to do a show. They would have only 5 minutes of airtime, but Prabhupada accepted it. 5 minutes, he said, is sufficient. We will preach the whole philosophy of Krishna consciousness in 5 minutes. Prabhupada and his party took the ferry from Dover across the English Channel to France and then traveled by train to Amsterdam. The television studio, located outside the city, was in a modern air conditioned building with constant loudspeaker announcements, artificial plants, a TV in every room, but no windows. The receptionist brought Prabhupada and his disciples to a windowless room with painted concrete walls. In India, Prabhupada said, we wouldn't consider living in a place without windows and fresh air. I want to sit by a window. So the devotees checked through the entire building until finally, in the third floor hallway, they found a window. Moving their chairs with them, they sat with Prabhupada and sat by the window. By the year 2000, no one will see the light of day, Prabhupada said. Cities will be forced to live underground. They will have artificial light and food, but no sunlight. The producer of the program arrived, surprised to find that the Swami was also going to be part of the act. The surprise was a pleasant one, and he welcomed Prabhupada to the show. Now, he says, now, what I want you and your group to do is to sing your record, Hare Krishna mantra. You don't actually, you don't have to actually sing out loud. We're going to play your record and you meme. Pretend you're playing those instruments. Pretend you're singing. He allowed that afterward Prabhupada could speak for 2 minutes. Just before Prabhupada and devotees went on stage, they had to wait in the wings while a local Dutch group danced around, pretending to play their saxophones, trumpets, and drums. Then the producer brought in a table with a cushion on it for Prabhupada and seated the devotees around Prabhupada on the floor. The cameras began. The record player and the devotees started to meme. Suddenly, clouds, produced by dry ice, rolled in on the set, a mystical effect. As the devotees disappeared under clouds of carbon dioxide, only Prabhupada remained clearly visible. Seeing the special effect unsuccessful, the producer motioned the devotees to stand and dance beside the Swami. The song ended, and a camera closed in on Prabhupada. Now you have 2 minutes, Swamiji, the producer said. Prabhupada began. We have been chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. This is a transcendental sound vibration, none different from the Lord. The Lord's name and his form are the same. Please chant this sublime sound, and your life will become perfect. You'll be happy, and you'll realize your true nature, that you're an eternal servant of God, Krishna. This process is called Bhakti Yoga, and we request everyone to take to this chanting. Thank you very much. Prabhupada was pleased as his disciples' record continued to be a hit in Europe. The Hare Krishna record is selling very nicely. Yesterday, it sold 5,000 copies, and this week it is on the chronological list as number 20. They said next week it will come down to number 3, and after that it may come to number 1. So they're very much hopeful of this record. To Satsarup in Boston, Prabhupada wrote, the Hare Krishna record is going on in England nicely, and I heard that in Australia it stands fourth on the list of 50 important records. Hare Krishna mantra became the number 1 song in West Germany, number 1 in Czechoslovakia, and among the top 10 all over Europe and even in Japan. With the income from the record, the devotees began paying their bills and financing the renovations of the buried place temple. Sometimes the devotees would perform at concerts with professional groups, and sometimes they would receive invitations to appear in nightclubs. After one particularly late and nasty nightclub engagement, Yamuna went to Prabhupada and told him what the place had been like. Prabhupada called for all the devotees. These places, he explained, are not good for brahmacharis. The principle is that we have to make devotees. So we have to think where we are going. If we are going somewhere to preach, but we can't make any devotees there, what is the use? So we have to think like that. He said he wasn't forbidding them to preach in the nightclubs, but he told them to be careful. One of the devotees asked if showing slides of Krishna mixed in with psychedelic slides was permissible. Prabhupada said no. Krishna should be on the throne or an altar. If they watered Krishna consciousness down, it would become idol worship. Not since Prabhupada had left India in 1965 had he preached to Indians as extensively as now. Indians would always attend his lectures, and even if they didn't dance and chant, they appreciated Krishna consciousness. Even before Prabhupada's arrival in England, a few Indians had stepped forward to help the devotees, and now the majority of Prabhupada's occasional guests at Titanhurst were Indians. Bringing their families, they would sit and chat with Prabhupada, often inviting him to their homes for dinner. Kedarnath Gupta states, Prabhupada agreed to come to our house. We received him with a warm welcome, and many other people also came to hear him. He was very much pleased to see that we had our family, deities of Radha and Krishna, given by my mother. And he commented, I am very much pleased to come to this place and see that Radha and Krishna are here. He gave a very nice lecture and told them that the purpose of human form of life is self-realization. He said that one should be inquisitive to know who he is. All those assembled who had come to hear him were very much pleased and impressed by his lecture. After his lecture, I did the arti and we offered the foodstuffs to the deity. And then we distributed prasadam to everyone. Prabhupada took the prasadam and he was very much pleased to take prasadam in our home. As he was leaving, I requested him, when can I see you next? He said, you can come see me anytime you want. Sometimes there would be disagreements over philosophy, but Prabhupada's arguments were always convincing. The Indians were respectful to Prabhupada and repeatedly invited him to their homes. One of Britain's most prominent and respected Indians visited, Praful Patel, as did many businessmen with the means to help Prabhupada's mission, but few were willing to sacrifice. The second moon landing by American astronauts was scheduled for mid November, only a few weeks away. For months, the moonshots had received much press coverage, and Prabhupada would speak often of them. Almost a year ago in Los Angeles, he had answered a reporter's queries on the possibility of man's landing on the moon. He states, just like we are going from one place to another by motor car or by airplane, this mechanical process would not help us go to the moon planet. The process is different, as described in the Vedic literature. One has to qualify. According to our literature, our information, it's not possible. In this body, we cannot go there. The narration continues. At Titanhurst, Prabhupada often brought up the moon landing while talking with his disciples. The moon landing was a hoax, he said one evening in his room, for they cannot go to the moon. The moon planet Chandraloka is the residence of the demigods, higher beings than these drunkards and cow eating slaughterers who were taken to inhabit it. who are trying to inhabit it. You cannot think this travel is allowed. Like when I migrated from India to the US, the moon planet cannot be visited so quickly. It is not possible. Srila Prabhupada's disciples accepted his statements. He was giving not simply his opinion, but the verdict of the Vedic scriptures. Because he accepted Vedic authority over modern science, so did his disciples, but not Purushottam. Detecting Purushottam's dubious mentality, Prabhupada would often joke lightly in Purushottam's presence. Someone would ask a question, "Where's Janki?" And Prabhupada would reply, "Oh, Janki has gone to the moon." Then everyone except Purushottam would laugh. The devotees knew of Purushottam's difficulty. He was an American and proud that the Americans were conquering space, and they knew that Prabhupada was joking about it. Purushottam was up on the latest scientific advancements. He was impressed by NASA's achievements and astronaut Neil Armstrong's giant leap for mankind. Although Purushottam went on with his duties, he became sullen, and Prabhupada noticed his lack of enthusiasm. One morning, Purushottam and Yamuna were together with Prabhupada in his room. Purushottam had several days' growth of beard and was wearing the same orange sweater he had slept in, whereas Yamuna was neat and clean. Although she had only two simple cotton saris, she would always put on a freshly washed and ironed one before going to see Prabhupada. Looking at his two servants, Prabhupada said, "Yamuna, you have so many saris. They're all so beautiful." Yamuna looked up at Prabhupada in surprise. "I don't have so many, Srila Prabhupada." "No," he said, "you're wearing a new piece of cloth every day. It's so nice. You're always looking so neat and clean. And your tilak? Purushottam, what do you think? Who do you think has the best tilak?" Purushottam didn't answer. "Beautiful tilak," Prabhupada said, "means beautiful person." About 6 o'clock the same evening, Yamuna was cooking puris and potatoes for Prabhupada when she heard him ring the servant's bell. Leaving the ghee on the fire, she ran up to Prabhupada's quarters. He talked with her about the lecture he would give that evening and eventually asked, "When will prasadam be ready? Before the discourse?" "Yes, Srila Prabhupada. I am..." Yamuna smelled smoke. "Oh," she gasped, "please excuse me, Prabhupada. I left some ghee on the fire." Rushing downstairs, she found the kitchen filled with black smoke. She couldn't see the stove. "Purushottam, Purushottam," she cried. Purushottam arrived, and together they groped through the smoke. Somehow Purushottam extinguished the fire before it caused serious damage. Purushottam and Yamuna were covered with soot. Their faces were black, and Purushottam's orange sweater, his robes, and Yamuna's sari were all blackened. Suddenly, Prabhupada rang the servant's bell, and they both hurried upstairs to tell him about the fire. When Janki returned downstairs and saw the mess, she ran upstairs to Prabhupada's room, where Yamuna and Purushottam stood, still covered with soot, before Prabhupada. "What has happened here?" Janki burst on. Prabhupada looked at her soberly and said, "Today, Purushottam has gone to the moon." "What?" Janki asked. Prabhupada repeated, "Yes, our Purushottam has gone to the moon." Prabhupada, Purushottam said, "I'm a brahmachari. Why are you saying these things? Being a brahmachari is no restriction from going to the moon. Anyone can go," Prabhupada said, winking. The devotees regularly encountered John and Yoko. Although originally interested in a business relationship, John was inclined toward the devotees, but his friends advised him not to get involved with the Swami and his group, so he remained aloof. Ishanadas narrates, "I was in the kitchen working, and John was sitting at the piano. He had a piano in the kitchen, a great upright piano with all the varnish removed, bare wood. And in this way, he was sitting at the piano playing Hare Krishna. The man was actually a great musician, and he played Hare Krishna in every musical idiom you could think of. bluegrass music or classical music or rock and roll or whatever. He would go at will from one idiom to another, always singing Hare Krishna. It was so natural for him, and one could see that he was a musical genius. And in this way, he was entertaining me, and he was obviously really enjoying it. So, anyway, while this piano playing was going on with great vigor and enthusiasm, the chanting Hare Krishna, his wife Yoko Ono appeared in a nightgown or what have you and said in a very distressed tone, "Please, John, I have a terrible headache. Can't you stop that sort of thing and come upstairs with me?" George was different. He was drawn to Prabhupada. When one of the devotees had asked, "Why, out of all the Beatles, are only you interested?" George has replied, "It's my karma. One of the things in my sign is the spiritual side." George Harrison responds, "Prabhupada just looked like I thought he would." I had like a mixed feeling of fear and awe about meeting him. That's what I liked about later on after meeting him more. I felt that he was just more like a friend. I felt relaxed. It was much better than at first because I hadn't been able to tell what he was saying, and I wasn't sure if I was too early to even be there. But later, I relaxed and felt much more at ease with him, and he was very warm towards me. He wouldn't talk differently to me than to anybody else. He was always just speaking about Krishna, and it was coincidental who happened to be there. Whenever you saw him, he would always be the same. It wasn't like one time he would tell you to chant the Hare Krishna mantra, and the next time say, "Oh no, I made a mistake." He was always the same. Seeing him was always a pleasure. Sometimes I would drop by thinking I wasn't planning to go, but I better go because I ought to. And I would always come away just feeling so good. I was conscious that he was taking a personal interest in me. It was always a pleasure. George was attracted to Krishna and he liked to chant. Even before meeting Prabhupada, he had learned something of Krishna from Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, from the autobiography of Parahamsa Yogananda, and from traveling in India. But Prabhupada's instructions in particular impressed upon him that Lord Krishna was the absolute truth, the origin of everything. George narrates, Prabhupada helped me to realize the multifaceted way to approach Krishna, like the prasadam, for example. I think it is a very important thing, prasadam, even if it's only a trick. Like they say, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, even if it's a way to a man's spiritual soul, it works. Because there's nothing better than having been dancing and singing or just sitting and talking, and then suddenly they give you some food. It's like it's a blessing. And when you learn to touch Him or taste Him, it's important. Krishna is not limited. And just by Prabhupada's being there and pouring out all this information, I was moved. It's like the mind is stubborn, but it's all Krishna. That's all you need to know. It's all Krishna. This world is His material energy too, the universal form. And in Prabhupada's books, there are these pictures showing Krishna in the heart of a dog and a cow and a human being. It helps you to realize that Krishna is within everybody. Although Prabhupada might have been teaching some higher aspect, what came through to me A lot was a greater understanding of how Krishna is everywhere and in everything. Prabhupada explained about the different aspects of Krishna, and he provided a meditation where you could see Krishna as a person everywhere. I mean, there isn't anything that isn't Krishna. Prabhupada saw George as a nice young boy and a devotee of Krishna. According to Bhagavatam, no matter what a person may be, materially, if he is a non devotee and never utters the holy name of God, he cannot possess any good qualities. Many swamis and yogis in India, even some who considered themselves Vaishnavas, had no faith in or understanding of the holy names of Krishna. But George liked to chant Hare Krishna, and he liked to put the holy name of Krishna in his songs, which were tremendously popular all over the world. So he was serving Krishna through his music, and that made all the difference. Prabhupada narrates Mr. George Harrison appears to be a very intelligent boy, and he is, by the grace of Krishna, fortunate also. On the first day, he came to see me along with John Lennon, and we had talks about 2 hours. He wanted to talk with me more, but he had now gone to his sick mother in Liverpool. Prabhupada also saw George as a rich man, and Lord Chaitanya has strictly instructed devotees in the renounced order not to mix with worldly men. But Lord Chaitanya had also taught that a devotee should accept any favorable opportunity for propagating Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada narrates If this boy cooperates with our movement, it will be very nice impetus for all. He's a moneyed man. These moneyed men have to be very cautiously dealt with in spiritual life. We have to sometimes deal with them on account of preaching work. Otherwise, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has strictly restricted to mix with them for Krishna conscious people. But we get instruction from Rupa Goswami that whatever opportunity is favorable for pushing on Krishna consciousness, we should accept. Prabhupada dealt with George cautiously, but encouraged him to chant the Lord's name, take his prasadam, and surrender all his works to him. When the devotees in the US heard of Prabhupada's dealings with the Beatles, some of them exaggerated the closeness of the relationship, especially in the case of John Lennon. Prabhupada heard of this and immediately stopped it. Prabhupada narrates Regarding the booklet you and Gargamuni are sending, in the introductory portion signed by you and Gargamuni, you have said that I am personally instructing John Lennon and George Harrison in the yoga of ecstasy. This is not very satisfactory. Of course, George Harrison sometimes comes to see me and naturally I instruct him on the Bhakti Yoga. But the statement in this letter gives hint as if I have been invited by them for this. If this comes to their notice, they may take some objection, which will not go to our credit. These things should not be publicly advertised, and I do not know why this has been done. Anyway, if you have not distributed many of them, you just try to take out the portion which is not a fact. George Harrison narrates Prabhupada never really suggested that I shouldn't do what I was doing. I heard that at different times he would say to the devotees that I was a better devotee because of my songs and the other things I was doing. He never actually said to me, but I always heard that. And the good thing for me was that I didn't have a feeling that I needed to join full time. I think it would have spoiled it if he had always been on at me saying, Why don't you pack in doing what you're doing and go and live in a temple somewhere? He never made me feel any different, like I wasn't quite in the club. He was never like that. I'm a plain clothes devotee. It's like that. I saw my relationship that I should help when and where I could because I know people in society. It's like any half decent person. You just try and help each other a little bit. He was always pleased with me because anything I did was a help. I mean, not just to the Krishna temple as such, but just to anything spiritual that I did, either through songs or whatever. It pleased him. He was just always very friendly. He was always chanting, and at times he said that to me, just to keep chanting all the time, or as much as possible. I think once you do that, you realize chanting is of benefit. There's so many gurus who go around making out that they are it. But Prabhupada was saying, I'm the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, which is really what it is. He wasn't saying I'm the greatest and I'm God and all that. With him, it was only in the context of being a servant. And I like that a lot. I think it's part of the spiritual thing. The more they know, then the more they actually know that they are the servant. And the less they know, the more they think they're actually God's gift to mankind. So, although he was obviously a very powerful individual, very spiritually advanced, he always retained that humbleness. And I think that is one of the most important things because you learn more than all the words he says, you learn really from the example of how he lives and what he does. I'm going to just read that sentence one more time. And I think that's one of the most important things because you learn more than all the words he says, you learn really from the example of how he lives and what he does. The Daily Sketch reported Krishna people dine out at John and Yoko's place. A photograph showed the devotees seated out of the doors taking prasadam. Lunchtime at Tittenhurst Park, stately home of John Lennon and Yoko Ono, and some of the Lennon's house guests take their places in yesterday's sunshine. The picnickers are followers of Indian Swami, His Divine Grace, Abhay Charan Bhaktivedanta. They have adopted the ways of the East, from their clothes and shaven heads right down to the Indian curry they eat with their fingers, which is all rather out of character for a place like Tittenhurst Park, which cost John £150,000 and covers 60 acres of most exclusive sunny hill near Royal Ascot Race Course. Prabhupada and his people, and Yoko and Ono and John, and theirs made an odd combination. 2 days after Prabhupada's arrival at Tittenhurst, John and Yoko had flown to Canada to perform with the Plastic Ono Band at Toronto's Rock and Roll Revival at Varsity Stadium. In October, John and Yoko had recorded Wedding Album and begun work on a film, Rock and Roll Circus, and John had recorded Cold Turkey. Although John was usually shy, the devotees working at the main house found him open hearted and generous with his possessions. He invited the devotees to stay permanently at Tittenhurst and farm. Whatever he said, whatever he had, he said, he would share with them. One day, Yoko asked Yamuna if a devotee couple could stand in for her and John on stage at a London theatre. She and John had previously appeared there, dressed in only a burlap bag, and were supposed to make another appearance, but Yoko thought perhaps a devotee couple could take their place. The crowd, she said, might never know the difference, and even if they did, it would be a hilarious publicity stunt for the devotees. Politely declining, Yamuna explained why devotees could never do such a thing. When she told Prabhupada, he was adamant. None of his disciples would go. For days afterward, he condemned this sensuality. John invited Prabhupada to the manor to hear his recent recording of cold turkey. Although such a song held little interest for Prabhupada, John whimsically wanted him to hear it. Taking the opportunity to preach to the great man of the world, Prabhupada went. Within John's main sitting room, Prabhupada sat on the couch before the fireplace. The tape was ready on the large 16-track machine that had recorded it, and as Prabhupada sat patiently, John began to work the controls. But the machine wouldn't play. John began cursing under his breath, turning knobs and pushing buttons. Although only Purushottam had accompanied Prabhupada, two other devotees hid outside beneath the windows listening. When they peeked in and saw John struggling with the machine, they began giggling in the shadows. "Oh," Prabhupada said, "so your machine is not working? Well, never mind. We've also made some recording and we would like to play this music for your pleasure." John resigned himself to listening to Prabhupada singing, and Prabhupada was saved from the cold turkey. Prabhupada kept his visit short. As he was leaving, he saw on the wall framed life-size photos of John and Yoko naked. He also saw black and white silhouettes of a man and woman in various positions of sexual intercourse. On returning to his room, he commented, "It is not good for us to continue staying here." He asked Mukunda to find him an apartment in London. The buried place renovations were still incomplete, and Prabhupada said he preferred to be in the city so that he could oversee the work. The natural setting of Tittenhurst was pleasant, but Prabhupada's host way of life and his were incompatible. One day, John and Yoko, dressed in black, came to visit Prabhupada. Acknowledging him to be a great yogi with mystic power, they asked him to use his powers to arrange with Krishna that they be reunited after death. Prabhupada was disappointed. "This is not my business," he said. "Krishna provides you with life, and he takes it away in the form of death. It is not possible that you can be united after death. When you go back home, back to Godhead, you can be united with Krishna. But husband and wife, this is simply a mundane relationship. It ends with the body at the time of death. You cannot pick up this kind of relationship again after death." Yeah, I'm gonna stop here. 6:54. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mataji, for allowing me the opportunity. Thank you to all the devotees for listening in. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manoj Prabhu, for reading, and thank you so much, devotees, for all your kind association. Vancha kalpatarvyasya kripa sindhubhyo cha patithanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you so much, everyone. We all can meet tomorrow again. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Divya Mataji. Hare Krishna.
No problem. Mother. Thank you so much for your kind association. Hare Krishna.